Hey, what's happening? Jason Woodland here with Always the Journey TV. We are on episode number 6 as far as the interviews go. We've been having a ball over here. Again, just to explain, this is sort of a hybrid of the Always the Journey podcast. And this has been a lot of fun because I've been able to introduce and interview a lot of really fun people out there in the community about what they do for business, what they do for work, for art, and so forth. And I'm looking at talking to a lot of people about a lot of really great things. So anyway, I wanted to share just really quick this really amazing book that my mother-in-law sent me for my birthday, Be Water, My Friend, by Shannon Lee. Let's see here. This is Bruce Lee's daughter, and Bruce Lee has always been one of my sort of indirect mentors. No, I did not know him, but I've definitely learned a lot from him throughout the years. I love this book so far. I'm only about halfway through, plan to have it finished by the end of the week. So if you're so inclined and like to read, that's a really good recommendation. The concept of being water is a really great metaphor, and being able to sort of transition through all the life's changes and so forth. So it's definitely a very good message, especially for the times right now. So anyway, would like to now introduce a very dear friend of mine. I'm going to go through her bio first before we bring her on. But anyway, Elif Ekin is a very good friend, and she was born in southeastern Turkey. She moved to Rhode Island in 1975. Her first job was working as kitchen help at a nursing home, morning shift, 6 a.m., and she was only 14 years old. A lot of things I appreciate about Elif, but some of that is that she's a scrapper and she's a hustler and she's always working. She's always got something really cool going on. She majored in art and art history in Providence College in Rhode Island, and then she went on to get a master's degree in art history as well. So she's very well versed when it comes to art and history and so forth. Worked high-end retail until moving to Utah on Pioneer Day in 2001. That's fun because I also worked in high-end retail back at the Chalk Garden in the late 90s, the old school Chalk Garden when it was at Trolley Square. There is a Chalk Garden there now, which is the same family, and it's equally as amazing. But the old Chalk Garden had a men's department and a women's department and so forth. It's a really fun piece of history in Trolley Square. So Elif then volunteered at UMFA, cataloging the African collection, and worked in collections department for 4 years there. Then she first started working the farmers markets, bringing Turkish treats to Utah back in 2004. Then she baked out of the Tea Grotto, which is a very well-known tea house here in Salt Lake City. But she did that back in between 2004 and 2008. Back when it was on about 900 East and 2100 South. She then later divorced and wrote a book about divorce, and then became a life coach in 2011, helping a lot of people navigate those sort of treacherous waters of divorce and major life changes. Then she created an organization called Divorcee Cafe back in 2014, which she is now transitioned into a full-blown nonprofit organization. Then she brought back baklava, which is absolutely amazing. And we're going to be doing a deep dive on her baklava business. It is now called Bohemian Baklava, which she renamed back in 2013. Ladies and gentlemen, please allow me to introduce my dear friend, Elif Ekin. What's up?
Hey, dude. What's going on, yo?
Oh, just having an amazing snowy day. What's going on with you?
Oh, not much. Just bopping from one person to another and doing different meetings and stuff, trying to keep out of trouble. You know, that's hard for me sometimes.
That is. I definitely agree. But you've got a lot of stuff happening on your plate right now, and we're going to dive into some of that, which is really exciting. But I'd like to just have you sort of touch on what is Divorcee Cafe, so the watchers of this show can get a better understanding of what that is.
So Divorcee Cafe is a nonprofit that helps people heal and move through divorce on 3 different levels: mind, body, and spirit. So every month on the first Wednesday of the month, and right now we're meeting virtually through Zoom rather than in person, I have facilitators that hold space to offer free services for people in all stages of divorce. That's pre-divorce, when you're just thinking about it. That's when you're in the thick of it. And then once you're divorced, because divorce doesn't ever really end once you sign the divorce papers. There's always something that comes up. And we help people mind, body, and spirit, because it's not just about the financial and all of the tangible stuff. It's also about all the self-care and the spiritual care and the healing that goes onto it, so that you can move into your new normal with grace and healing.
Nice. Okay. And for quite some time, you were, because as I'm one of the facilitators that helps out on a monthly basis at Divorcee Cafe, providing ideas about life insurance and how that can look. Tell me, so you used to be at a physical location, then of course COVID hit. Now, as you said, it's all on Zoom. What is your plan for the future when things start transitioning out of the COVID-19 experience?
Well, we'll probably start meeting again in person on the first Wednesdays. And until we have an actual physical location that will be able to house everyone in the way that I want to be able to house all of the facilitators and their work, I've been opening up my home in Sugar House. So I open up my home, all day from 9 to 6 on the first Wednesday of the month, when it's not during crazy pandemic COVID season.
Exactly. So if someone that's watching this wants to get more information specifically about Divorcee Cafe, what is the easiest and quickest way for them to do so?
Well, you can head over to my website at divorceecafe.org. You can find our Facebook page at Divorcee Cafe. And then on the Facebook page, at the top of the Facebook page, there's a pinned post on being able to join the private page called Divorcee Cafe Conversations, where you can ask questions and get advice and stuff like that in the middle of the month or anytime you need it. My facilitators and people who've gone through divorce are really quick to offer feedback, advice, solutions, and stuff.
Awesome. Okay, that's great. So moving on to now to Bohemian Baklava.
Yeah.
I love your business, and I was going to try and show a little sample of one of your baklava here, but we ate them all. So thank you again for bringing some of that over. That was extremely generous.
Oh, anytime.
Yeah. So first of all, tell me about the name Bohemian Baklava. How did you come up with that name?
Well, I'm not your everyday traditional Turkish girl. I kind of live on the edge. And one of the things that I realized when I brought baklava back, after lots of poking by people going, hey, that baklava, you need to bring that back. It's been like years, so start making it. And I had gone through the Banking on Women program. And when we did a demographic search as far as how many people are doing baklava in the city, I realized there are like at least 8 or 9 people way back in 2013 that did baklava homemade, depending on their region and where they came from. And I'm like, well, what makes me different? And then the thing that made me different was that I like to do different flavors, and I like to play and kind of be that culinary artist, where instead of maybe painting now, I use the baklava filo dough as my canvas. And so I said, well, let me just embrace the dark side and totally go over and do all sorts of crazy flavors. And then, the name that just kind of embodied that was a bohemian, because a bohemian is very eclectic and kind of does one thing and goes to another and is kind of nomadic and kind of flows from one thing to another. And so that seemed to sum up my personality, and it seemed to kind of sum up what I'm trying to embody in the baklava that I create.
That is awesome. Okay, so what was your original inspiration to do baklava to begin with?
Well, my mom always made really good baklava growing up. And so when I left my job at the UMFA, I'm like, well, what could I do? And I said, well, I could bring baklava to Utah. And this was in 2004. And at the time, I was going to do Turkish sweets and savories. And so my company was called Lokum, which translates to Turkish delights. And so I did the baklava, and the baklava was always selling more than everything else. And mainly because people were met with the unexpectedness of not being too heavy, too sweet, or too gooey. So, it's like, oh, I actually like baklava. This is good. So when I decided to bring back something, I said, well, I will just do baklava and do one thing and do it well rather than spread myself too thin over the different sweets and savories.
Nice. Okay, that's awesome. Um, Tell us a little bit more specifically about the business. So how do you build your product? Like, how do you disseminate the product? Like, just tell us a little bit more about the details of the business.
So right now I am mainly a special order wholesale company. I'm at the moment trying to create a physical location for a cafe, but currently I just outsource to restaurants and cafes around town. So my biggest vendors are people who are open to either creating a collaboration with their own products that they sell in their store, or are Middle Eastern based or Mediterranean based that want to kind of alleviate the pressure of doing baklava in their cafe and outsource it to someone else who knows what they're doing and can specialize it to their specifications.
Nice. Okay. So if someone wanted to order as a store or a coffee shop or something,
Mhm.
you can really tailor the amount they get and maybe even the
Mhm.
size of the baklava themselves. So it's very
Mhm.
tailor made to that organization. Is that correct?
So it's tailor-made to the organization depending on the flavor and the size and the quantity. So for example, Lizzie's Kitchen is known for its hummus. So one of the flavors that we created for them was to add tahini to the traditional walnut baklava. So they had tahini and walnut. Another thing is I can do them bigger size. So, you know, when I was selling out of the local Greek down in Riverton last year, they had wanted bigger sizes. So then I would make them bigger sizes for them. And the other thing, and when I was doing the beer baklava at Uinta, I would take the beer that Uinta Brewing was making, like the Bubba Black beer, and I would create a baklava syrup out of that and then do dark chocolate and walnuts. So I try to take elements of what they are. And one of the things that I excel at, and that's so much fun for me, is to sit down with a cafe or a restaurant and go, okay, what flavor do you want to create? Do you want to create something that's going to be specific for your company that nobody else is going to have? And what does that look like? Is it colors? Is it tones? Is it textures? Like, what is that? And that's been so much fun for me to kind of express my artistic creativity by creating a palette with my baklava, because I love to add colors and textures into it, just like a painting.
Oh my gosh, I love that. That is so cool. Speaking of some of those flavors, what would you say? Because earlier on you were saying, in terms of Bohemian and it's out of the box and you can do some really, wild things. What are some of the most, let's say, out of the box flavors you've ever done? Like some of the craziest things you've ever tried?
I think the craziest, so a few years ago, I put myself out there to be open to baklava challenges to create flavors. And I think the biggest challenge that I had was to create a watermelon cotton candy baklava. That was not easy.
I can't imagine. It sounds amazing, though. Tell me about it.
So first I had to figure out like what watermelon cotton candy baklava tasted like, and whether or not like the cotton candy flavor was going to be the top note or the watermelon. So then it's going to the candy section in the baking store to get the flavor extracts. And okay, maybe it's 2 tablespoons of cotton candy and 1 tablespoon of watermelon in an already prepared syrup. And then it's like, okay, so as far as cotton candy, it's hot pink and blue. Is taking a 1/4 cup of hot pink sanding sugar and a 1/4 cup of electric blue, putting that in so that when it cooked, the blue would bleed and pop onto the phyllo dough. And you pour that over. The thing that I kind of failed at was that I let it all sit and cool overnight. And then when I plated it and then put it in the muffin papers, because it was cool, I didn't think that the cotton candy would dissolve as fast as it did, because I wanted to plate it with cotton candy on top.
Uh-huh.
And it all went and shriveled out and looked like this big, sad, pale, melted, gross, red cotton candy. Like if you've ever seen like matted, wet cotton candy, like I was like, oh wow, that really looks horrible. Like that was a fail. So yeah, flavor wise, it was good. Plating it, it needed to be like an immediate cotton candy, here, give it to the person, before it went like ugh, and just
Oh.
died.
That's hilarious. Thanks for sharing that story. It's it's fun to see, all the things that you would attempt to try, even if it didn't work out. But I'm sure it was actually still good because everything that I've ever tried from you, the chocolate and the pistachio and the walnut and all that is just it's very special. It's very, very good.
Well, thank you.
So tell me, and I know this isn't just as part, but can you tell me a little bit of the difference? Like, let's say the main difference between like your baklava and other baklava that you'd see out in the marketplace.
So I punk out Turkish baklava. So what that means is Turkish baklava differs from Greek baklava is that it doesn't use as many phyllo sheets or as many layers. It uses about 26 or 28, whatever one box of phyllo dough contains. And it grinds up its nuts very fine because I don't like big chunky nuts. I want it to be like blended throughout. So you have 3 texture points and flavor points when you bite in a baklava. You have the crunchy top, you have the nuts and a little bit of the crunch in the middle, and then you have the gooey syrup at the bottom. I like to have those 3 flavor points as you eat it. What's different is that Greek baklava, depending on which avenue of Greek baklava you follow, it's either 33 sheets of baklava for the age of Christ or 40 sheets of phyllo dough for the 40 days of Lent. So Greek baklava differs between 33 and 40 sheets, as well as they use a honey syrup rather than a sugar water lemon syrup, and their pieces tend to be a bit bigger. So my thing is that I do bite-sized baklava that you can pop in, and they don't crumble and they don't get all over your beard and they don't get all over your boobs. So it makes it more approachable without all the fuss.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's hilarious.
It's true though, right?
Yes.
You look
Totally.
at the baklava and there are these big hunking things. You take a bite and it's like all here or it's all here, one or the other.
That's awesome. Okay, that definitely gives me a much better understanding, and I think that'll definitely help as well for people that are learning a little bit more about baklava. So tell me, what are the geographic locations that you cover specifically?
As far as selling my baklava?
Yep.
So right now I have my baklava downtown, and I have about a 30-mile radius right now as far as who's buying my baklava. I probably would be open to delivering as far up to Layton and as far down as Riverton, as far as my circle, as geographically speaking, because I'm kind of driving it. So I think that the furthest I've gone is about a half an hour down to Riverton, because that's about an hour round trip for me, to deliver baklava. And I've gone up to Layton. So I would be open to that kind of circle.
Okay, cool. But as far as online orders, can you cover the entire country?
Yes, I have figured out how to do that because, COVID, and I got bored and I needed to become a baklava bandit and ship out baklava all over the United States. I used it as a challenge.
Yep.
So I have figured out how to mail baklava without it becoming this jumbled, gooey, huge mess. There's a thing called bubble wrap that you put between the baklava and the top of the container. So yes, we love bubble wrap. Bubble wrap and baklava. It's a win.
Okay, perfect. So anybody from New York to California can order your baklava. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
Okay, awesome. Love that. Tell me, what does your client look like? So if someone were to refer business to you, what does that look like? Anybody that likes desserts? Tell me specific on that.
Well, I think that my baklava really appeals to foodie people who are open to trying new flavors, because I have some wackadoodle flavors out there that traditionalists are like, oh, hell no, that's not happening, and so it really appeals to the foodies who like to combine their flavors, who are open to new things, and are into not being, okay, well, this is how that's supposed to be, this is how that's supposed to be, and that's how that's supposed to be, or, loves to combine different things. And, it really is the adventurous kind of person who is ready to step out of the box and try something new.
Okay, perfect. And you and I are both tea connoisseurs, which is a lot of fun.
Yeah.
We're always talking about tea together. Is there a particular tea that you use as a default to pair with your baklava, or is it always different depending on your flavor?
Well, I usually default to the Turkish black tea. You know, one, because it makes a big pot of tea and I can keep people like hanging out at my house for a long time because nobody leaves until the pot is done, as you well know.
Yep.
You know, and so I always defer to a black tea, but I mean, depending, because I add a lot of dried fruits and stuff to my baklava, that maybe a hibiscus tea would blend nicely with, you know, the almond and tart cherry. So I think that there is definitely room to start tea pairings where this particular baklava would pair well with this one, or even this beer baklava would pair well with this beer, because I have like 5 different kinds of beer baklava that you could just kind of mix and match. So, you know, you can just have a beer and it would pair with a certain kind of baklava.
Okay. So tell me about how do people get a hold of you for your baklava? What are the best ways people watching this video can buy your stuff?
Well, you can find me on bohemianbaklava.com.
Okay.
You can email me at info@bohemianbaklava.com, or you can just shoot me a text. It is my private cell phone number at 801-674-7047. And you have a week left to be able to take advantage of the National Baklava Day special, because National Baklava Day is coming up on November 17th. You can get 17% off your total order. And then you order it, you forget it, and I deliver it. And then you can relax for the whole holiday season. Isn't that lovely?
That is extremely lovely. I love it. So tell me, what are the options people can order in? Like, what is the smallest amount they can order, and what's the largest amount they can order?
So usually it depends. So I don't want to kind of put a number on it. If you're going to just do like a one-off, you know, and that's it, then usually I do like a quarter tray, which is about 24 pieces. And because I have modified my baklava technique, I can keep my prices relatively reasonable. So that, depending on your flavor, is going to run you $20 to $25 for those pieces, because I've been able to economize on time and supplies. If you're going to be doing multiple like boxes, you have more of an option of like, okay, I'm going to do a 25-piece set, I'm going to do a 6-piece set, I'm going to do a 4-piece set, because we're creating a whole assemblage of gift giving. Then you have more of a variety, because we can kind of pick and choose, because we have more pieces to play with, because you're working in trays rather than just individual boxes. Because my trays are 96 pieces on a tray, that I can't just make a 6-piece of baklava, because what am I going to do with the other 90 pieces of baklava? But if you're looking to create a whole assemblage of orders that are going to go out, then I can say, all right, let's do this, and we could kind of mix and match that. You have more of a variety, especially at the holiday season, to have multiple flavors that way.
Nice. And I mean, your product, I mean, not only does it taste absolutely phenomenal, your customer service is phenomenal, but you can also, I mean, you handle, I mean, getting baklava out for customer appreciation, employee appreciation, holidays. I mean, it runs the gamut, and it's
Yeah.
the perfect gift that is that you don't get, you know, often. You know, you don't get amazing baklava in the mail just, you know, randomly. So I think it's a, you know, for everybody watching this video, get with Elif and order some of this stuff, not only for yourself, but holidays are coming up. It's a slam dunk. And if you want to have baklava at your Thanksgiving dinner alongside of your pumpkin pie, it's 2 thumbs up for sure.
Thank you. Thank you.
Absolutely. So Elif, I always like to try and wrap these up by asking what one of your favorite quotes or favorite songs, or both. Do you have some you'd like to share?
Well, I think that one of my favorite quotes is like, I like unexpected conversations with gorgeous souls, because as my daughter always is just like, oh my God, my mother will talk to everybody. You know, you never know who you're going to talk to, and you never know what's going to come up of it. And so I always feel like the universe puts people in your path, because you're either supposed to learn something from them, or they're supposed to learn something from you and then pass it on. It's kind of like this butterfly effect. So I like the unexpected conversations with gorgeous souls, because you never know who you're going to meet and what's going to come of those connections. As far as songs, I think one of the songs that really resonates with me is the Alanis Morissette song "You Learn," because you learn through all the different things that you do, you know. So I think that is one of the songs that I try to embrace, because you know, you can't ever grow if you don't fail and you don't learn what you don't know.
You're awesome. I love that so much. And, you know, I mean, there's a lot of reasons why you and I are friends and get along. But that is definitely one of them. We love to meet new people and to learn different things. Elif, this has been a sincere pleasure having you on the Always the Journey TV show. Thank you
Well,
so
thanks so
much.
much for having me.
Absolutely. So yeah, we're going to go ahead and wrap this up. Elif, if you don't mind just hanging out in the studio for just a few moments, that'll be awesome.
Sounds good.
All right. Thank you so much. So, ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. Elif Ekin of Bohemian Baklava. Like I said, definitely check out her stuff for the holidays. And regardless of holidays or not, definitely send them out to your clients, your friends, your family. It's absolutely phenomenal stuff. So there we go for interview number 6. Always having a lot of fun. And please feel free to subscribe to the channel and throw us a thumbs up. And we appreciate you chiming in and checking us out. Have an absolutely amazing day.